Hi, I'm Matt Reeves, executive producer of The Penguin, and I just wanted to welcome you here today and talk a little bit about where the idea for this show came from. When we were making The Batman, the idea was to do not an origin tale, but the early days of a young Batman. And with that idea, the rogues gallery characters around him, because in the comics, those characters are inspired by the presence of Batman in this place and come into being. It was, in a weird way, an origin tale for those characters. And so Dylan Clark and I were very excited about the idea of not only doing films, but maybe doing an HBO-style show that could not be focused on Batman, but instead be focused on one of those rogues gallery characters and see them coming into being, see their origins, and do it with an HBO treatment. And so when we were talking to Casey Bloys and Sarah Aubrey, they said, look, the one thing we really want to do with this, they were very excited about it, is we want it to be a marquee character. And so initially, my idea had been to continue Oz Cobb's story in the second film. And so I pitched them that idea that it was kind of in the wake of Carmine Falcone's assassination, there was a power vacuum in Gotham, and that the version of Oz that's in our movie is a mid-level, not kingpin version of the Penguin. And he is mocked and underestimated, but he has a deep ambition, a sort of dark American dream sort of building within him of grabbing for power, of becoming something. And so when we were pitching out that idea, an almost Scarface-like story, Casey and Sarah were like, that's it, that's the show. And so we went and looked for a writer who felt like they could really take that and make it their own and to really dig into this character examination. And we found Lauren. And Lauren spent a lot of time she's the person who saw probably the earliest bits of the movie. This was all while we were in post. And she started thinking about, okay, if I'd said to her, I want the story to take place a week after the movie, so that it is really in that moment of danger that we're talking about at the end of The Batman, that this is Oz making moves. And she came in and she pitched the story that we're all about to witness on HBO, and we're incredibly excited about it. And I think you'll enjoy talking to these incredible people here today, not to mention the absolutely astonishing Colin Farrell. So I invite you to enjoy.
Colin, here's a question that came in for you. What did you draw on to help prepare for this role? Did you study previous iterations of this character? And if so, what did you want to take with you or leave behind from those? I was speaking with somebody earlier, and they referenced Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy, and I never for a second thought of Rat's Rizzo once. But there's no doubt that every single film I've seen, someone else last week said to me that having seen the first two episodes, that Oz reminded them of De Niro in The Untouchables as Al Capone. Someone else said James Gandolfini. It's not an original performance, apparently. No, but what I mean is, all of them are in there. Like, I've seen Untouchables twice. I've seen Midnight Cowboy 4 times. Anything as an actor, anything you ever see, any piece of music you ever hear, it all kind of meets you inside in a place that gets filtered through every single character you do in lesser or greater ways. So there was nothing particular that I thought of. When I read the script first for The Batman, and I've said this before, I was kind of a bit baffled as to what I could do with it or how I would look. I met Matt Reeves to talk about The Batman, and I had just come off a thing called the Northwater that I'd put on 50 or 60 pounds for, and he was like, oh my God, you look great, the body's great. And I was like, well, tough shit, say goodbye to it, because I'm dropping pounds now, I got to get healthy again. I just finished being bigger for like 6 months. And then, of course, the technology of bodysuits. And then Matt said, have you been talking to Mike Marino? And I said, yeah. And he said, have you seen what you're going to look like? And I said, what I'm going to look like sounds like a threatening statement almost. No, I haven't. And Matt went, come here. And he opened up his computer on his desk in London. And this was about 6 months before we started shooting The Batman. And he said, look. And I looked at this sculpt, this creation. And I, like Matt, was confused initially when he saw it. Like, is that going to be, who's that? Is that going to be, I was confused by it. But I was also, it spoke to me so clearly. It spoke of a sense of history, a sense of threat, a sense of violence. Also, there was kind of something sorrowful to the visage as well. It was just so complex. So I had that. I had the script, and then I had that, and then what Lauren and her team of writers created from the ground up. I mean, they took just a seedling at best, which was what we did in the Batman film, and they created this whole world and these complex characters inhabited by Dee, Francis, and Rhenzy as Victor, and Kristen as Sofia, and every single character she paid attention to. It's not just the Penguin Oz show, it's all these human beings that are so complex and multifaceted, and I just knew that we were going to get to look into the engine of this guy personally in an interesting way. But there was no particular reference point. Danny DeVito and I shared a few texts back and forth, but that was more taking the piss out of each other about who's the best penguin. You know, it was nothing to do with it, and sending pictures of action figures and shit, and yours is more accurate than mine. What's up with that? Who did the paint job on my action figure? But nothing too serious or weighty, you know. But the script was, I mean, the script must have been what you guys created. Did you ever add it all up? Was it 500 pages? I mean, it was a tome.
I think you told me at one point how many pages it was, and I was like, please stop telling me how many pages it is.
Yeah, wait till I hit you up with Rotten Tomatoes next week.
Yeah. Kristen, here's a question that came in for you. What was it about the dark world of the Penguin that made you want to be a part of this series?
I mean, the first thing that made me want to be a part of it was that they wanted me to be a part of it. Like, you know, but also, I mean, this is like the type of role that is like, you know, it's such a like incredible dream to play because there's so much that happens to her and she goes on such a journey. And I'm also like a very lifelong Batman fan. So I've been dreaming of this since I was very little. And so like on a personal level, it was extremely surreal. And then as an actor, I was like, oh my God, you know, I would read each script and I would like pinch myself when I would realize what I was going to get to do.
Didi, I like this question that came in for you. It's very simple and straightforward.
Okay, good.
What are you most proud of when it comes to your work on this series?
Oh, geez. That's simple, but no. That's bad. That's a bad question. Oh, geez. That's hard. I feel like, weirdly enough, the feeling of surrender. Yeah, I mean, it's not a thing, but it was a sensation that I haven't always gotten to have. The piece is so theatrical. The writing is so theatrical. It's so epic. It's so large. So I was like, you guys are talking about, slightly terrified of the hugeness of it. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make her stop. You know, and there was a way in which we had to really embrace that and not be afraid and pitch hard. But there was also like a sweet surrender that you had to do that felt very I felt very soft a lot of the time, weirdly enough. I mean, when you look at Frances, you don't think it's a soft experience to play her, but there was a softness at the center, like, okay, there's nothing we can do but just go. And maybe it's how pitchers feel a little bit, you know, like they're going to pitch really hard, but there's like, you see them just like, oh, just surrender. So that I think I was proud that I was able to surrender in a situation that you could feel very pressurized and very shut down. I went into it thinking to myself, if that happens to me, if I start to feel pressurized and shut down and unable to really embrace the experience of doing this, then I don't want to do this anymore. And I came away feeling like I want to do it again, I guess.
Good. I love that. Lauren, obviously I know that the mother-son relationship was paramount to you. Like, that was a very important thing in the writing and in your pitch and all of it. What intrigued you the most? What did you most want to explore in the relationship between Frances and Oz?
I mean, for me, when I start thinking about characters, I ask myself a lot of questions, and it's just a little bit of a lonely process, but it's just me kind of typing out things to think about. And one of them is, you know, what does Oz want? Who is he? Where does he come from? You know, those are the many things that I start to think about. What is he afraid of? And I wanted to make sure that in this rise to power story that there was something greater behind that. I don't think people seek power just to seek power. I think they seek power because of a deeper want or a deeper void inside of them. And so to me, it made a lot of sense to build a mother figure for him and have so much more emotion rooted in that. And so I thought about this idea that Oz wants to make his mother proud, and he needs her love and affection, and she's withholding. And I started to ask myself why she would be withholding, and that's something that we reveal deeper in the season. And that felt like a personal connection to me. It felt like everyone can relate to some level of what it is to have a complicated family life, and rooted in that. And then I wanted to create just a really complicated bristly, emotional, tough broad. I just thought it would be fun to write. She's loosely based on my grandmother, Ophelia, who very different Mexican immigrant, came in but had a very hard life when she came to the United States, and she was tough. She was really, she was tricky, and she would just say wild things, but nothing like Frances. Frances has a dirtier mouth, and Ophelia would be very upset with me if I, to know that I was loosely basing Frances on her. But I just wanted a woman with energy that felt like Oz exists because of her, that he is who he is firmly because of her. And then, as Dee and Colin have already said, when they came together in that camera test and then their first scene together, it was incredible to watch. That magic trick that they felt, everybody felt on set. I mean, it was the spark that happened between them. And obviously Dee worked on the accent to match Colin's accent that he worked with Jessica Drake, his dialect coach, on. And it just made sense. I'm like, this is 100% Oz's mother. That is her son. This completely kinetically works. I also wanted the relationship to be weird and twisted, a little bit verging on Oedipal, to understand Oz in a deeper way too, to have just some form of distorted relationship. Well, Colin really embraced that.
Lauren, this question came in for you. How did you incorporate fandom into your creative process here? Is that something you have to think about at the forefront when you're doing something like this?
I mean, my goal is to make sure we're honoring the stories that have come before us and then try our best to make something that feels wholly original within it. I think the thing that I was most excited about, honestly, is to create new canon and, to be able to, create new characters or to evolve the characters in a different way and just, put my own stamp on it. That was really invigorating and exciting because I grew up reading comic books and I loved them, and I always wanted to tell stories like that, and just being given the opportunity to do that on the scale like this, I wanted to make sure as a fan that a kid like me would be excited, and yet hopefully we could draw in more people, like some people who aren't always included normally in that kind of experience. So really my goal was honestly just to create interesting stories, to have characters that feel relatable and intriguing and repulsive at times, that you want to watch and you're not quite sure why you want to watch them, and you start to think deeper about your own self in doing that. I mean, that was the goal, and to get to dabble in this kind of sandbox of Gotham City and the world that Matt established in the film was just really exciting for me. So, to do justice to what's come before, but then also to kind of break the mold and free ourselves of that was at least my goal.
Mike, there were two questions that I was looking at that came in for you, and I like them both, so I'm going to ask them both in hope that you can answer them both. One is very straightforward. How long did it take to transform Colin into Oz each day? I'm sure you can answer that very easily, but I also like this other one, and the journalist wrote, it may seem strange to suggest that Oscar-nominated prosthetics might need fine-tuning, but the demands of a Penguin-led project seem like they could inspire iteration. Were there any adjustments you made this time around?
Sure. So the creation of something like this, it takes many months. It's not just you show up and you have all these pieces and you glue them on. It takes really months to fabricate and sculpt and make technical molds and run silicone, and we've developed so many things to get it to move real. Certain softnesses that were different. The nose is harder than the cheeks and the neck and all of these things, and hiding his eyebrows and putting a brow piece that's the right color, because he's very expressive and he gets flushed when he gets angry and it turns red. So we have to paint the certain areas different than other areas because all skin changes in tone and things like that.
I just want to be clear, he wasn't running in mid-take and saying, he's angry now, spray paint him.
No, sometimes. But, and there's many things like if he had a really long night, his eyes would be darker, and if he was, getting dressed up, he would be clean shaven, and then some nights he'd have like a more 5 o'clock shadow and all of these things. So in the makeup chair, I think it was about 2.5 hours was like our pretty normal time, and then once he was in his suit, which we built as well, which is like a gigantic snowsuit kind of thing, and we had to keep the whole set cool, and he had to be in this freezing igloo, and everyone on set was complaining because it was so cold. But we tried to preserve the makeup as much as possible. So it was a 2.5 hour to 3 hour process, months in the planning and in the developing, and certain things changed from the film, little technical things, and I think that he's progressing as a human does. No one's face stays the same. It could be 6 months apart and people could look completely different. So Oz is going through a natural progression as far as what his appearance is. So as we get deeper in, he's changing slightly, and who knows where that may go. Maybe he'll look even different next time if there is a next time. But now, what was the part 2 of that?
You answered it.
Oh, there you go.
You aced it.
I
A+.
can keep going.
Rhenzy, this is a question that came in for you. What do Oz and Victor see in each other that allows them to coexist without betraying one another? Do you view their connection as a working relationship or a friendship?
Or
Or a romance.
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think that I think initially, there's a very much like just a survival instinct going on, and getting whatever you need to do to get to the next step. But I think it grows into something, which is one of the things I was most excited about when I was reading the scripts. And I think what he sees in Oz, I think he looks up to Oz in a way, and I think he sort of finds something that he's lost in Oz. Throughout the thing in the 3rd episode, you learn a little bit more about a little bit of his history, and then I think he finds that, maybe he fills that hole in a way with Oz and with Francis. And so I think that one of the things that I think he mostly looks up to is this very confident guy, that for no reason on paper is very confident, but he still has it. He still embodies this massive, and he's got this charisma, and he's so confident. So I think that's something that Victor even looks up to. And apart from that, there's sort of this there's a power to what Oz is doing, and there's an allure to the lifestyle that he has. And as much as maybe the morality clashes with, is this the things that I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, and what's right and what's wrong, there's also an allure to the life that Oz lives, and the money. It's nice to have money, and it's nice to have some power, and it's nice to have a little bit of backbone. And I think that being next to Oz, he sort of feels a little bit bigger himself even, in those moments.
I like that.